What's going on, everyone? It's Bales, and welcome back to another episode of AFL Fantasy Head-to-Head, where we put two players up against each other to see who'll be picking for 2024. This is episode 20 of the series. If you haven't checked out the other 19 episodes, make sure that you do. Joining me is another special guest, legend of a bloke, and a very, very busy man. And at the Keeper League pod, it is Heff, mate. How are you?
Good, thanks, Bales. Thanks heaps for having me on. Haven't seen too much of this sort of content before, so I'm pretty interested to take part in it and have a chat about a few players.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, this is a very good comparison but between these two. Can't get words out there because these players are the exact same price. It is Tim Taranto and Zach Merrett, $1.02 million each. And it'd be a really interesting discussion because Taranto has got that buy, even though it's a later buy, so probably a little bit sort of not as bad as your Tom Green buy at round 3 or the Sam Walsh buy at round 2. But be good to discuss them nonetheless. I'll be taking Tim Taranto and Heff will be taking Zach Merrett. We'll be starting off with Zach Merrett. So let's go there. So Heff, mate, why should people be selecting Zach Merrett in their side for 2024?
Well, to be honest, I probably won't select him in my side for 2024, but you gave me the two players, so I'm happy to talk about them. But I've kind of looked at this at a Zach Merrett versus Tim Taranto, more of a comparison between the two. And I've landed on Zach Merrett as the guy I would take. And really, it boils down to uncertainty, really, for Tim Taranto. Whereas Merrett, I'm just more confident in his role. Been more consistent with the numbers. I know he's a bit older and stuff like that, but more consistently put up good numbers from year to year. I know Taranto is still building, but I guess the huge thing for Richmond and Tim Taranto is a new coach coming in without a Muse. Who knows what that looks like? And if we looked at some of the numbers from the end of last season under Andrew McQualter, and again, I don't know what the comparison is going to be, but it does sound kind of similar. It just leaves me with a few concerns for Taranto. That's all.
Yeah, and that's my concern as well. And I'll touch on those numbers in a sec with Taranto because it's so interesting. His splits between buy and post buy, and it's sort of weird to think if it's hop or if it's not, but. When you sort of look at the Zach Merrett side of things, as you said, that there's more certainty with him. You don't have to worry too much about him. He's the number one mid or / number 2 mid with Parrish in there. You know you're going to get. He's been a perennial one sort of 10 plus guy. He's been one of, like Warney was like going on and saying like his average is like around that 105 mark for his career, which is amazing of how well he's gone. But how do you see sort of that? I think that he's now. Especially last year, shown that he is that number one tag target over Darcy Parish. I know the year before, Parish was having a good run, sort of like the year before and the year before that he was starting to get the attention, whereas I think Merritt's now taken that role back and got Hawthorn round 1 and with Finn McGuinness there. So that's obviously a little bit of a worry there. But how do you see that sort of playing out and the fact that he is over $1 million? Could you start with a guy that has got potential tag round 1 and is so expensive and just because of how consistent he is?
Yeah, it's a tricky question. I think if you are going to avoid picking any player that's a tag target, your team's going to look pretty bad, really. You've got to kind of take the good with the bad with these kind of players. And I think we always just fall back on the reliability of someone like Merrett. You know, he's going to do everything he can to build his work rate and stuff like that. His contested game's probably not there as much as it is with Taranto. But I think the positives outweigh the negatives in terms of taggability, I think, because you might get a few games where he is down a bit because he is tagged out a little bit, but then it's going to be counteracted by the games where he can put up an absolute monster score. And we saw that last year where there's a few times where he put up some big numbers, and I think a lot of people had captains on him and stuff like that as well. And, you know, single-handedly wins you games or brings you up the ranks those weeks. That's not to say Tim Taranto didn't do a very similar thing for everyone in the first half of last season, but again, circumstances have changed and there's a little bit of uncertainty there. So, yeah, there's tag potential for Merrett, but again, not that many teams actually run with out-and-out taggers as well. In all honesty, I haven't really looked at the Essendon fixture in too much detail to kind of know what it looks like early. And like I said, I'm not really going to pick either of these guys, but if I still have to argue for one, I'm still on Team Merrett, regardless of the tag target potential.
Yeah, so Merritt's opening run actually, when you look at it on paper, could be potentially a bit tricky, especially the first 3 weeks, because we've seen these teams all put attention to other players. So he's got Hawthorn in round 1. Obviously, we talked about Finn McGuinness could be someone there that could be a bit of an issue. Then he's got Sydney at the SCG. Ryan Clark not there anymore, but we've seen Rowbottom do some roles in the past. We know Longmire can always negate sort of the opposition's best player, so Maisie puts someone else onto him. St Kilda ran 3. We've seen Ross the Boss do that at times in the past. Ran forward against Port Adelaide in Gallagher. That could be, again, Port Adelaide, tough to score at, especially at Adelaide Oval. Then he's got the Dogs and then Adelaide. And then it starts opening up a bit after. So that sort of says to me that he could be a bit more of that upgrade target sort of post these opening buys. But just sort of going sort of with numbers last year, that he didn't actually go below 80 last year. He had a few 80s last year, so an 82 and 83, 80, 88. So a few of those there. But he had obviously monster scores like headline by like your 155, 158, 146, 140. So scores like that. So do you see the tag, like, even though we said the tag's probably not relevant, but even if he does get tagged, do you see it as much of an issue? Because last year he showed that he has sort of got that higher floor that even when he gets tagged, you can still get to a solid enough score. So what are your thoughts?
I think you just hit the nail on the head before. He's more of an upgrade target, because if you do look at those first 4 games, I was just thinking about it in my head. You've got Willem Drew, who Port tend to send players to. Who was the game before? St Kilda with Windhager looking like he's going to go back in the midfield. He could do a job on him. So you're probably right. He might be hindered for the first 4 weeks, but hopefully that's kind of out of the system. You know what I mean? By the time you tend to look at him there, because, and I guess you mentioned about like, you know, highs and lows and floors and stuff like that. Tim Taranto's like really not that much different, although Merrett had a higher top score and a higher like low score, if that makes sense. But like it's only, you know, I think it was Taranto's best score was 147, Merrett's was 158. So it's like, you know, if you get either of those scores, you're happy. And Taranto's lowest score was only 71. It was more about the run of like scores closer to that 90 to 100 mark at the end of the season that we saw. I've forgotten what you actually asked me, Bales, because I've rambled too much. But I think it was something about tagging. Yeah,
that's all right. No, it was just about, do you think that like showing his high floor last year, do you think that tag will be as effective as what it has been against Merrett in years past? We've seen him drop some stinkers. So what are your thoughts with sort of the tag if it does go to him next year?
Look, a tag's a tag. Like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. There's not much you can do about it. And like I said before, if you're picking your team based on who's likely to get tagged, like, you're going to want a player who pops, you know, and like becomes the number one performer in their team, and then they're going to get a tag eventually. You know what I mean? So you're not going to like negate those kind of players either. Like, again, if you're picking your team worried about tags, I think you're doing it wrong. You need to think about the ceiling, what they can potentially produce when things do go their way.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that Merrett, as we've touched on, pretty much as good as any player's sort of been over the past. Like, just one, I'm just like literally looking at his average. I'm not going to go through all of them because people know Merrett's averages by now, but over 100 since what's that, since 20, and under 100 average since 2016. So every year since then has gone over, and just obviously like a heap of 110s in there, and obviously a high 117. So we know how good he is, but yeah, as we've touched on, could be that guy that we look as an upgrade target. But just turning a little bit more onto the Taranto side, with the sort of the numbers from last year, like last year started like a house on fire, 14 games in a row scoring over 100 and didn't go under, and was that guy that we thought, could he go the whole season scoring over 100 in every game? But it was certainly a very, very different topic post-buy. So he's going at about a 100, over 120 in the first 14 games. But in the back half of the year after the buy, he was going under 100, and he only scored 3 times over 100 in his final. How many games is that? That's 2, 4, 6, 7 games there. So only 200s out of his 7 games. And there was 300. 111, 116, and 100. But then he's got some scores in here like 80, 97, 77, 99, 89, and then to finish off with a 71. So we didn't associate these scores with Tim Taranto at the back half of the year. And have I got to you for this one? Because I'm sort of unsure about this one. I think this is why it's probably such a good preseason watch. Was it Hopper? Was it McGualter being there? Like, was it a multitude of different? What do you put it down to? Why Merrett was scoring all these scores below 100 post his buy? Because he didn't even look like going under 100. We didn't go under 100 before the buy.
Yeah, there's a few things. So if you look at his average between rounds 1 to 12, and then average between 13 and 24, he's gone 122.5 in the first 12 games, and the second half of the season he's gone at 101.5. So over 21 point drop off there. Now that perfectly coincides with round 10, with where McQualter comes into as the coach. So again, I don't think it's 100% that. I think it's a few things, because yes, like Hopper does come in, but I'm not sure if it's 100% that either. I think what happened with Taranto's, and if you look at his like kicking efficiency and stuff like that, I know it's not terrible, and I know like good players like can have lower efficiencies because they're under the pump more and that sort of stuff. Like it's not a telltale sign, but when you compare the two, I guess Taranto has a poorer kicking efficiency. I think it was 58% for the season, as opposed to Merrett was 73.7 for the season. I know they're a bit different inside, outside, all that sort of stuff. But I think with Richmond, there was a few factors. So they probably worked out he was probably better at the in and under type stuff and winning the footy and then getting it out to some of their better distributors. But also as well, we saw Richmond with they were a high meters gain team from memory, and that kind of increased under McWalter, if memory serves me correctly, which means they're probably just not possessing it as much, and they're relying on trying to get quality disposal into their forward line. And I'm not sure if Taranto was the guy that they wanted to do that under McWalter. So that's the type of things I think we just need to look into a little bit more and see if that was the case. And because the answers to those questions, and I haven't really looked into it too much myself, I focus on players that are ranked outside the top 150 over 200 type of things. I haven't looked at it too much. These guys are all kept in my league, so I got no use for them. But like they're the type of things you probably want to look at and see if anything did change. So like meters gain versus, because I think Russ on Twitter 2468, shout out to that guy, one of our loyal listeners, put out a really good stat the other day saying that teams that have low meters gained are better for fantasy because they're chipping around more, they're going sideways, that sort of stuff. Whereas the high ones are trying to get the ball moving forward and stuff like that. So there's less opportunities for possessions because they're kicking long and moving up the ground and more contests and stuff like that. So yeah, it's something to look into, because I think if you find the answers to those questions, you might find the answers to what happened in the second half of the season.
Yeah, exactly right. And there has been talk of Richmond maybe slowing down their game style a little bit, sort of to maybe change the angles and maybe try and use James Short to sort of propel them forward a bit more. So it'll be a pre-season watch. But for me, when we're looking at Taranto, because I guess if you're bullish on him, you can pick him. And if you think he's going to do what he did in the first half of the year, great. But for me, there's probably just a lot more questions than answers and a few more flags. He's not only has he got that opening round bye, but he's over $1 million. He didn't obviously go as well in the back half of the year, and that was more because of Richmond's style. Is that what they do this year? New coach, like, does he play? Like, we're hearing Dusty setting PBs and everything in training. He's looking like he's going back in the mid. Does that mean Taranto maybe goes a bit more forward potentially? Do we get a forward status after 7, 6, 8 rounds? So that'll be something to watch. I see him being more a midfielder, but it is sort of just something that he has done in the past that I guess we'll have to sort of keep an eye on. But is that sort of how you see it as well, that there's just a few too many questions? And do you see him maybe playing a tiny bit more forward if Dusty's that guy playing the midfield?
Yeah, potentially. That's something I haven't really thought about too much. I think he was pretty useful for them in the midfield. Like, regardless of his fantasy scoring still going down at the end of last season, like, he was still like playing pretty good footy in there as well. You know, it's just the fantasy scoring wasn't as big as it was. So I'm not sure if that is too much of an issue, that kind of forward factor. But you're 100% correct on just the amount of questions you have, the uncertainty with someone like him, especially when you're paying the price as well. Like, you've seen a year of Merrett with a new coach, well, last year, but it didn't really affect his scoring, where you've seen a new coach come in and coincided, could be coincidence, who knows, but came in and his scoring was affected by a new coach. And then we've got another coach, you know, and who knows what style they're going to play. So it just depends. Like, if you're going to take that risk, like, and when you're spending this much money, do you want that sort of risk that's attached with it? Me personally, not. I'd go with the safer option, but that's the way I play, and that's probably why I've never won a hat, you know. So these people out there that do take that risk and have that unique type of pick that other people aren't looking at, they tend to be the ones who do win it all. So who knows? But you're right. It's about the amount of questions and the uncertainty. Yeah,
and just sort of going back just quickly onto that point that you mentioned about the sort of the game style and that, I remember that the one game that stood out to me the most was when Richmond played Brisbane last year up at the Gabba, and a lot of people had Taranto VC and a lot of people had Dunkley. That was the game that Dunkley actually had the calf injury and he went off in the third quarter. And that game was, Taranto was open, I remember, it would have been probably for a mountain of plus sixes. Like, he probably could have had 10 marks that night, maybe not taking them all because it was quite dewy up there. But Richmond, with that game style, it was just slingshot, sort of just going sort of some back to forward. And he just didn't get used. And that was the theme throughout a lot of the games the back half of the year. So, as you said, new coach coming in, didn't sort of coincide where he stopped scoring the hundreds, but he didn't have as many hundreds from when McGoldrick came in. It was round 10 he came in, and that for me was that signal that was like, okay, this guy's it's not the same sort of game style. And I'm sort of of the opinion, and it'd be interesting to get your thoughts as well with the opening round. We obviously a lot of discussion with that, obviously, as we creep closer. And is that a lot of people aren't starting, especially these top price players that have got a buy, and Taranto's got the buy in round 6. Regardless of if it's round 2 or 3 or 5 or 6, are you just sort of just crossing off all primos that have got any opening round buy that are priced over 900k?
Yeah, well, if you look at my team now, they're all in there because I put no thought into it and I haven't touched my team since opening week. But that is definitely like after listening to all the classic podcasts and that sort of stuff, and I've thought about it and weighed it up. And like, yeah, even players like Nick Dacos, like I'm just not going to start with them, I don't think, because you're going to be I'm just too scared to go behind and try to make up the points. And I know exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to have too many injuries. I'm not going to be able to get Nick Dacos in. And like the guys that did start with him are going to be miles ahead of me. They're going to overtake me and come home with a wet sail later on. I know that's probably going to happen. But yeah, those buy rounds at the start do scare me. So I'm too scared to go behind. And yeah, I'm probably just going to do what everyone else does and not start with them, and it'll probably bite me.
Yeah, it'll probably bite me the other way. I'll probably start with everyone. Everyone goes, and I'll probably the guys I should have gone that I thought of. They'll probably be the ones that go well. But that's how fantasy.
Well, maybe
works.
You do it one way, I'll do it the other way, and then one of us will be guaranteed to go well.
Yeah,
Good.
Exactly right. Yeah,
That's
I like
deal.
that. Yeah, and then we'll cut the hat in half at the end of the year and we'll say that we helped each other. So,
definitely.
But it is time to pick who we pick out of the head-to-head here. But I think it's pretty much known who we're picking here. So, Heff, who are we picking between Zach Merrett and Tim Taranto for 2024?
I'm picking Zach Merrett for 2024. Do I need more of an explanation? Because I think I've given it all up so far.
Yeah, I think you have, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory for what we said. And I'm the same as well. And you did say it. I'm not starting either. I have Merritt's been a guy that I have looked at just because of if you want sort of M1 that's that sort of captain option and everything like that. Merrett is a guy he's good for that. But we did sort of say those first 4 weeks that. Bit iffy in terms of he could get tagged, could not. But even if not, I think those teams are restrictive enough anyway that his ceiling could just be lowered a little bit regardless. So maybe St Kilda, if he doesn't get tagged, we know they give up plenty of +6s, maybe goes big there. But Sydney at the SCG, obviously the round 1 game against Hawthorn and the game against Port Adelaide and Adelaide, we know that those teams can be restrictive, and especially Port Adelaide. So that's why I'm a bit nervous about starting either. But yeah, we're very interesting to see how they go anyway, regardless. But that'll do it for this head-to-head episode. If you did enjoy the episode, make sure that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel on our way to 2,000 subscribers. And let us know in the comments below what you guys think of Zach Merrett or Tim Taranto. Do you guys sort of look at the other way? Do you guys more bullish on these two players and are going to select them in your side? Let us know in the comments below what you think about them and any other players you think as well. And your thoughts on the series of how it's gone so far as well. Put that in the comments below. But Heff, mate, thanks for jumping on for this episode, mate. I know you're a busy man, but thank you very much for taking the time to jump on an episode, mate. Where can the people firstly find you on the socials? Where can people find the Keeper League pod? And then also a bit of a live show happening during Gather Round. So sort of take it away.
We have so much stuff going on now that you put it that way. Yeah. Socials, Keeper League pod on everything. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. TikTok's my fastest growing audience for some reason. I think because I'm the only one there doing stuff. I don't know. With all the 12-year-olds and the 16-year-olds and the people that don't go on Twitter. But anyway, so that's that sort of stuff there. And then you can check out the podcast on all the streaming platforms. There it's everywhere. You put them on one and they upload them to all these days. The big thing though is our website at the moment, keeperleaguepod.com.au. If you want to support what we do, you can sign up as a member. And if you're a member, you get access to all these great resources that we've got on our website. The biggest one at the moment is the Keeper League mock draft simulator. Seeing a lot of people using that, so much so that I had to change the way I stored data from it because it was costing me too much money because I didn't expect so much traffic from it. But anyway, so yeah, if you want to go check that out. It is a good thing. Yeah. So keeperleaguepod.com.au, you check out all the resources there. A lot of people using that. And I think that's pretty much it. Oh, you can follow me on Twitter at Heff_KL.
Yeah. And then Gather Round?
Gather Round live show is a big one that Bales, you'll be involved in some way, shape or form. But we got Warney coming across up from Launceston. We've got DC coming across from Perth. He'll be joined by Jake, who's from Adelaide, and the rest of the Adelaide boys, Kays, Dossie, Louis, will be around the place. Doing a live show at the Elephant British Pub. It's basically perfectly halfway between Norwood Oval and Adelaide Oval. And we're doing it at 3 to 3:30 in the afternoon. We'll see what the crowd's looking like by then. But essentially, we aim to be wrapped up by the time the first game starts. So people that want to head to the North Melbourne-Brisbane game at Norwood can just walk up there and head there. And those who are going to go to the Port Adelaide Essendon game will jump on the tram and head down to the Adelaide Oval afterwards and have a bit of a party on the hill with me, Warnie, and all the rest of the podcasters there. And yeah, it should be good fun.
Yeah, it should be good fun. Yep, 100%. I'll be there. Looking forward to it. The gather round's always a fantastic time for footy as well. So looking forward to that. Well, Adelaide's still got it because I know it'll probably move around in a few years' time. So sorry, other states, we're enjoying it at the moment. So, but yeah, you can find me at BailsDT as well on all the socials, and obviously trulybailshd here. But you're watching already here, so make sure you subscribe here. And also, if you're listening to this as a podcast on wherever you podcast, please, if you could be so kindly, leave us a 5-star rating and review. That'd be very much appreciated. It does help out AFL Fantasy Fanatics there. And follow AFL Fantasy Fanatics as well on Twitter at AFL Fantasy Fans. So, yeah, appreciate everyone's support so far. Episode 21 is the next episode up. Another very special guest. He has been a busy man, but good to get him on the show. And we're going to be chatting about a couple of midfielders. Similar prices as your Wines and your Guthries and guys like that, which we've already talked about in the series, but they're guys that are rumoured to have halfback roles, and they could get DPP in round 7. So very interesting coloured players to chat about with another special guest, but we'll catch you in the next episode. But thanks, Heff, once again for jumping on, and we'll catch everyone in the next one. So we're out. Cheers.